welcome to this episode of Quick Hits from Rollout Marketing. I am honored and pleased to have my very, very good friend, Jason Paris, joining me today, all the way from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Jason is the founder of Paris Painting and one of the partners of Olive Capital and Olive Holdings. He's kind of a big deal. But he's moved beyond business, and now he's moved into the philosophical. So I brought him on today to speak about passion. Jason, thank you for joining me, buddy.
So good to be on. Excited to be here, Brad.
Great. Let's get to it. I like to start these episodes with your thesis. So, pursuing passion is what?
Pursuing passion is aligning your actions and your goals to tap into the fuel that makes life just a little easier, a little more sublime, a little bit more aligned.
What if pursuing passion does not make your life easier, but makes your life harder? Is that possible?
Yes. Yeah. A life of ease is not always the most fulfilling life.
Yeah.
There's three major macro components to a fulfilling life. One would be enjoyment or pleasure. So kind of what you said, like what's easy, what feels good.
Hedonism?
What?
Like hedonism?
Like hedonism, right? So this would be, or it could be like you get in the sauna, like you have a good night's sleep. You do something that's enjoyable. Like enjoyment is part of having a fulfilling life. Another part of having a fulfilling life is, I know what it is. Another part of having a fulfilling life is progression. No, that's not what it is. It's enjoyment.
This is going well so far.
Purpose and productive. Let's just say productive. There's three macronutrients to being fulfilled. It's enjoyment. It's being productive. So you feel like you're checking things off the box. You feel like you're actually moving forward. Are you being productive? Are you progressing? The third is, are you serving a purpose? And that comes through fulfilling your passions. A purpose is that constant thread that's woven throughout all the actions of your life when you're in alignment. And so you can have something that's very enjoyable. You're actually good at it and you're productive. But if it's not aligned with your purpose and you're not fulfilling your passions, I would say it's not a fulfilling life. Same time, if you're following your purpose and you are productive, but there's no enjoyment in your life, that's not very fulfilling. If you're following your purpose, you're doing some enjoyable things, but you're not progressing and you're not productive, that would not be a fulfilling life. It takes all three.
So in relation to like entrepreneurship, business ownership, being a contractor, why is pursuing passion really important? I mean, can't we just do our jobs?
You can for a little while. It's hard to really tap into the fuel that's required to be exceptional without having something that's tying into your passion. And it doesn't always have to come just from a pure vocational activity. But what I found oftentimes happens with individuals is there's like three things that get them off the rails. One thing that gets people off the rails is they achieve their goals, but it was never in alignment to their passions or their intentions. So they're not sure where to go next. Because ultimately these goals that people set, they're good goals. It's less about the goal. It's more about the direction that it's forcing them to head in, right? Life is more about the pursuit that is the achievement. We're human beings, not human achievings. So when somebody achieves a goal, but they haven't done the hard work of aligning their direction, that can lead them to go off the rails a little bit. Another is when circumstances and life change and the ability to attain that goal that you've set out will never get hit and there's no possibility of it. That'll get people off the rails. Another is when your goal is really set by your support system. So oftentimes this happens with people who have very involved parents and they kind of set this rigid plan up for them and they follow the plan, they hit the plan, and then that support system falls away. And so they need to set a goal, but they've never thought of what direction should these goals be heading in, and that can get them off the rails as well. So I think it's important to, whatever goals you set, you need to align them to intentions, have them being fulfillment of passions, and ultimately serving a purpose so you can continue on that trajectory when you hit one of those three situations.
So if I have a goal of having $100 million and I win the lottery and I get $100 million, You're saying it may not be fulfilling, may cause me to fall off the rails because there was no purpose behind that, or what?
It's a tough one. So I think everybody needs to set meaningful goals to help us maintain a high level of focus. And it really comes down to, why did you set that goal? Did you do the work of saying, this is a goal that moves me in this direction? And is the goal ultimately the means, or is it the ends? If it is the ends for you, that's tough, because then you get to the existential question of, now what? What do I do now? Where am I going to go now? If it's simply a means to end, maybe you wanted to get $100 million because you felt like that was going to be, provide you the resources to fulfill other areas of your life and to give back in a way of abundance. You can continue to do that by setting new goals that align with that direction.
So you and I have had this conversation a bunch of times, and I've had the same conversation with others about passion and whether your vocation needs to be pursuing your passion, all that. And I've used the example, like, I'm not passionate about having houses painted. My passion is my faith, my family, my fitness, and my friends, my 4 F's. That's what I'm really, really passionate about. So in my situation, do I need to be passionate about, like, my business? Do I need to be passionate about painting houses?
I think you can find a passion that's fulfilled through your vocation. Mm-hmm. When I work with people, the framework I like to go through is that we have separate passions for separate macro life areas. So there's the sphere of Brad, right? And that's you. So what are you passionate when it comes to Brad pertaining to your physical, your mental, and your spiritual well-being, right? What's an underlying passion that drives the intentions in those life areas? So there's one passion. I think there's another passion people have then in their family. So what is the passion that gets fulfilled through the intentions with their spouse, their children, and their estate? And then there's this passion of, how do we influence and impact the world? And that gets lived out, breathed out, flushed out through vocation, relationships that are not your immediate family, and then through volunteer work. And so my hope would be that whether you're volunteering, whether you're hanging out with your friends or extended family, or you're going to your day-to-day job, that there's some fulfillment of a passion, of a root passion, that's a fairly broad umbrella that you can tap into for those moments of motivation. And I would just say those passions should be independent of circumstance as well. So whether you're running a painting business or you're working at Walmart as a greeter, you should find a way to fulfill your passion. And you should always think through, is this passion circumstantially dependent, or is it something that can adapt and evolve as your life changes, right? So you may not be running a painting company forever. You might get more into a marketing company, or eventually you may be doing mergers and acquisitions, or who knows what's in store for you, Brad, when it comes to your vocational journey.
Did you say mergers and acquisitions?
I meant to say mergers, but
let's
we can rewind the tape on what I could have said. Yeah, you might become like I'm not gonna get you struck down on YouTube with any commentary on that. Yeah. But to think through, is this something that's circumstantially based, or can it go with the changing of the tide that's going to be your life? And that's the work of having a solid foundation, a foundation that you can continue to follow when you run into one of those 3 circumstances that I laid out earlier, because every area of your life is going to change quite a bit, right? You think physically, as you age, it changes quite a bit. Your relationship with your wife, I'm sure, is a lot different than it was a decade ago. And then what's going to happen with you vocationally? And we've seen big changes just in the case study that is Brad over the last 2 years, not to mention 5 years. And so to think through 5 years from now, is there a passion that you've identified in your life that can be fulfilled independent of a changing circumstance?
Sure. And to be clear, like I feel a lot of passion about our businesses. And I'm very fortunate that the businesses that I own and started and run feed my primary passions. But I've also been in situations previously where my vocation was not fulfilling in that way. So I would just lean heavier in those time periods on the things outside of work that I was really passionate about. But so what would be your advice to someone who doesn't? You and I are you can say privileged or whatever. We're in a position where we're making a little bit of money and we have a lot more freedom and can make a lot more independent decisions of what we want to do with our time vocationally. most people in the trades are not in that situation yet, and they probably feel tied down and kind of, figuratively dying while they're holding a paintbrush. What would you say to those guys that aren't feeling much passion in the current situation, and what should they be doing right now?
Yeah, sometimes it's finding a new situation. Sometimes it's finding what the passion is that you are fulfilling in your current circumstance. And there can be a lot of joy. I mean, when you get a lot of time freedom and you have options in how you spend your days, it takes quite a bit of, it's a first world problem kind of a thing, or a 1%er problem kind of a thing. It takes an effort and energy to think of, how do I make this day fulfilling? How do I make it intentional when what you're going to do is not served to you on a silver platter from a need-based foundation. So it's almost in some ways a gift to have that, where you'd say, here's your day today. Here's what you're going to lay your hand to. Here's the focus of your work. There is a gift in that, but I would say sometimes it's not just changing the circumstance, because the grass sometimes is greener where you choose to water it, but it does take work to find what the passion is that you are fulfilling in your current day-to-day, and then remind yourself of that. That's something that I found for myself and many of the people I work with, is we're really bad at remembering things. Humanity is very, very good at creative efforts. We're very good at relationships. Those are probably some of the two primary things I think humans will continue to be really good at. But remembering, we're really, really bad at. We forget things. We have false memories. So to remind yourself who you are, what your passions are, what your purpose is, what your intentions are for your work as you're in that day-to-day grind. That awareness is sometimes what's required, more than just a significant change.
Have you always thought this way or thought about these things? And if not, like, when did you notice that change? When did that happen?
See, I've always been a little bit of an odd cat. I think we were talking on previous podcasts of what would happen to me in middle school at the lunch hour. But I would say when I was 22 years old, I went through quite a bit of a life shakeup and a life change. And one of the things I ended up going through was I got my hands on this giant poster that was used for kind of tractionizing or organizing church plants. And I applied it to, instead of an organizational church structure, to myself in my life. It's where this concept of the life arrow came from. So I've got these different areas of my life. So instead of different organizations or components or compartments of a church, you've got like fellowship and ministry and where you send people ministry work and all these different things. And I instead said, like, what about these different areas of my life? And then put them into macro areas. So it's something I started doing when I was 22 years old. That was the same year that I started my rhythm of doing a 3-day silent retreat in December. So I took this giant poster with me, erased everything, rewrote it, want to make sure I could still stand on my own 2 feet philosophically about who I thought I was. But yeah, I would say it was something, it was a combination of nature and nurture. I think there's a little bit of nature in there, but kind of had some life circumstances happen in my early 20s that brought out the nurture as well.
I know another thing that you're passionate about is your family and kind of creating or changing a family legacy. And one way in which you do that has kind of caught fire within our industry is the family meetings. You want to talk about that for a minute and what that looks like, the structure, and why you do it? Yeah,
I'd be happy to. The why, it came from a silent retreat I was doing a couple of years ago, and I was just meditating and praying, and I felt a call to lead my family in this way. And I feel like I'm a good dad. I feel like I'm a good husband, but I felt convicted that this was something that I needed to start as a rhythm in my family. And I didn't come up with the concept of having a family meeting, but it certainly is something that has kind of caught fire in our industry. And I've sent out hundreds of the family meeting templates to mostly painting contractors. And I get super encouraged when I see other people post it. But the general idea is that you just like your business, you take time and you set it aside, talk about the things that don't come up day to day. So when we work with people, we're with them all the day and we're talking about different things, but it's still really healthy to have a weekly one-on-one where you talk about the things that don't come up, even though you're together. It's the same concept with your family. And with my family, a lot more now than I used to be as far as throughout the actual day. But for most people, they're at least together evenings, weekends, holidays. But there's some things that just don't come up organically that you should talk about They require a little more reflection and intentionality. And that's what the family meeting is for. It's kind of weird where a lot of business owners, we get very intentional with our businesses. We craft a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan. We set rhythms and structures. We line out KPIs to know if we're on track or off track. And capitalism kind of forces that intentionality on us. But when it comes to what most people would say are the most important areas of their lives, their family, their relationships, their spirituality, it's a lot more of, oh, I know what I want, and I'm sure I'll just do it. And I can only imagine if we ran our businesses that way, how that would go. Oh, I know what I want to do. I want to run like a big profitable business. I'm sure I'll just do it naturally without all that structure and planning. So it's a little bit of structure, it's a little bit of planning, but it takes something that you know you want to do well and makes it intentional.
Yeah. Yeah, we love it. As you know, we've done quite a few family meetings, though there's a bit of seasonality in our consistency with babies and businesses and everything else. But it's been a huge benefit to our family, especially it's been fun over the past couple of years as my daughter has gotten older. So now she's, 7.5, and she really gets it. Though I will say in our family, the best part of the meeting every time is the compliments and then the silly family picture, which I noticed you and your wife don't get very silly in your pictures. So you may want to consider setting that example better for your kids.
Yeah, no, we certainly show the kids the pictures that you post, Brad, and say, look at how silly those parents are. And I do lack a little bit in the silly picture department. That's fair.
It's one of our core family values, so I have to live it out. That.
I've seen that. Yeah.
All right, let's so if someone's listening, I want them to leave this conversation with one or two takeaways. So something that they can do today. So what is something that a listener can do today around pursuing their passion that can meaningfully move the needle in their lives?
Take the time to do the work, the deep work of identifying a passion. One of the prompts that I'll use with people is to think through, in whatever macro sphere of your life, or maybe you just start with a blanket statement, what makes you emotional? What makes you weep? What makes you pound the table? What would you give your time to? And what would you give your money to? These are good prompts that kind of give some clues. And it's really nice to workshop this with somebody. But those are some good clues of what you're passionate about. Sometimes it's revenge. I've seen people who have been addicts in the past, and now they're passionate about freeing people from that specific addiction. I've worked with people who had a more challenging family life that they were brought up in. And now they're really passionate about how they build a really healthy family that they're involved with. So sometimes it's revenge on previous challenges you've gone through. Sometimes there are things that make you weep, make you sad, make you mad. Sometimes there's things that just give you a lot of energy and excitement. But emotion, like blanket statement, emotion is a good general insight into what an underlying passion could be.
Brilliant. All right. Well, someone wants to get in touch with you. I know you offer like coaching services. If someone wanted to get in touch with you to talk further about this, how can they contact you?
Yeah, I focus on life coaching. So I'm not a business coach. I can go toe to toe with pretty much anybody when it comes to the business side, but I'm really passionate and just focused on developing the individual and their purpose, passion, and intentions. But reach out to me on social media. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. On Instagram, it's Jason Paris _life coach. You can find me that way.
Great. Well, thanks for coming on, bud. Love you. Appreciate you.
Good to see you again, Brad.